Hello, my name is Pamela Stokes Eggleston, and welcome to You Good, an engaging podcast that delves into the realm of Black wellness. I'm joined by my co-host, Oneika, and together we welcome you to the podcast, a space for meaningful conversations, fresh perspectives, a place for us. The You Good podcast is a love letter to our community and an invitation to connect, share, grow, and heal together. We're glad you're here, and we've got a lot to tell you.
Hey everyone, Oneika here. Welcome to this episode of You Good, where Pam and I really get into, are the arts good for us? How can they help us, and how do they make us feel whole? This is actually one of my favorite conversations that we've had, because often when we talk about what healing looks like and what does it feel like to embrace healing practices, we don't talk about the arts. We talk about the wellness industry. We talk about things like yoga and mindfulness. But what can the arts do for us? How can they help us? And how are they important to us as Black folks? So hope you enjoy, and see you soon. Yeah.
And that's important. Art is life, and artists are so important now more than ever.
Yeah. I think it was on Instagram, and I think it's Terry Cruz's daughter I follow. I don't even know how I started following her. I think she's an actor and a writer, but she was talking about, the multi-billion-dollar entertainment industry and how many people are artists, are writers, dancers, musicians,
Right.
poets, and how challenging it is to be an artist, and yet how much art is a big part of our society.
Mm-hmm.
And yet how many artists struggle, and how there's such a small percentage of people who make a substantial living, or even a passable living
Right.
as an artist. But it's a conversation that she feels like we should be having, and that the arts should have more respect than they do, because artists reflect the times, they reflect what's happening in the world, they can be a catalyst for change, for revolution. I mean,
It's unfortunate. I was looking at Instagram, and Ray, who I love Ray. Her album is just crushing it. They're saying she's doing well for an independent artist. It feels familiar yet different. So if you've been around for a minute, you'll hear familiarity in her
Yep.
lyricism and in the orchestration of the music. She got Hans Zimmer on the record, and there was somebody in her audience that she was performing with, and this person drew a rendering of her, and she said, "So do you have a business or what?" And they said no, and she was like, "When are you getting the business?" And I was like, we don't hear that conversation like that
Right.
anymore. Like, when are you? And everybody in here will support you. And then the audience started clapping, and it was so beautiful. And it looked, I couldn't see it, but it looked like her from where she held it up.
Wow.
She was like, well, at least have a side hustle, because you are talented, and we need to support, and everybody will buy your art. And it was so nice. It was just nice to see that. And I think that that's where we have to go. This isn't a choice. I think people think art is a choice, and it is not. My sister has taught me that it is a necessity in these chaotic times to see things that are beautiful.
Yep.
To see things that are also disturbing, but that push us into doing something, or moving in a different way, or thinking differently, or loving differently.
I saw Flowetry.
I was
Yeah.
jealous.
Yeah.
I was jealous.
Andrea surprised me with a
I was
surprise
jealous.
date night. They were amazing. I mean, even better when they were at their height. It was incredible. But what was also equally as incredible was the audience. And it was just all of us dressed up, having a good time. And it was a party. Like, it was a party. And that you could feel the joy and the love. And it was so incredible. And I was like, this is what we need right now. Like, we need this connection. We need just to blow off steam, but also even remember, because art is so important for me. And as I was listening to like Say Yes, I felt
Oh,
like,
one of my favorites on
I
the
know, it was like I had a foot in the present and a foot in the past, but it wasn't like being trapped in a memory. It was, I really felt like I was in two different timelines. And it was just so powerful. Like, this is why art matters. It's good for our nervous systems. We can time travel with it. We can create change with it. It was really a spectacular evening. It really was.
I guess you're gonna keep Andrea. That's a good date.
Oh, man,
Man, that
man.
floor tree. Oh my goodness. So many good memories. I've seen
Hmm.
it's been a while. I think I saw them before they split and did their separate thing.
Yep.
I think I saw them before
Yep.
that and I loved it.
Did they really? But
I mean, I think concerts never went away, but concerts are coming back because I think people need community. They need to be in the room with people
mhm.
who they feel
Mhm.
and that have the same thought patterns, beliefs, morals. And it feels good to be around those types of people
Mhm.
in community, listening to good music, feeling the vibes, time traveling, as you said, and holding each other.
Mhm.
And I was looking at, I guess Springsteen kicked off his tour. How
I
many
would see
times
Bruce
is he's
Springsteen.
touring? I would see him in a heartbeat. I don't know where he kicked it off. He went right into, what his political beliefs are. He didn't even care. We're gonna pray for the men and women in uniform in Iran and whatever. And then he started off with war. Huh. What is it? He just kicked it off. Bam, just kicked it off. Like, you know what you're getting. You know
Ugh.
what you're getting there. And so you go there because you know what you're getting because you have similar beliefs,
Mhm.
similar morals. It's like I would
Mhm.
go see Jack White in a
Yeah.
heartbeat,
Oh, in a heartbeat.
in a heartbeat, in a flash. If he comes to
Mhm.
Jersey, let me know.
Yeah.
Get me I will drive.
Ugh.
But yeah, I think people want that community. I think COVID created an environment where you could put your head down and do artistic things. Maybe you were knitting, you picked up knitting, maybe you picked up the drums, maybe you started writing again, and then the door opened
Mhm.
and we had to go back outside again. And it felt like things dropped off that we picked up. You said you were making bread at some point.
Yeah.
You were, or trying, attempting. And,
Tempting.
but people, it felt like, excuse me, people went right back into the normal mess that in a way had gotten us there, had gotten us into this COVID period. It wasn't
Mhm.
just the disease or the virus. It was the disease of the mind, the disease of the heart and what was lacking. And that was on full display.
Mm.
It was on full display because COVID, the air got fresher and clearer. I know you noticed this. The plant said, thank you. Everything I planted was growing like nothing, like squash, any food, herbs. It was growing like I have never seen before during COVID. Like the earth said, we're tired
And
of
the
you.
still, I wonder energetically about the stillness too, right?
Hmm.
Because we were inside, so we weren't creating all of this chaotic energy.
Right.
And that energy that, Mother Earth has to hold
Hmm.
could go back
Right.
to where it needed to go, taking care of the land. And, animals were out and all of that. And I don't think the world is ever going to be the same. It won't be what it was before COVID. And I do think that people are there's a lot more spirituality, I think, because of everything that's happening. And we see that. And I think a lot of people got spiritual during COVID.
Mm.
And I think people are embracing the arts again. And I think they're embracing it too because they need something and they need community. I don't always know if people even understand how important it is just for your spirit and for your health that, the National Endowment of the Arts was necessary, not just, to support artists, because it's good for us. It's good for people to be engaged with the arts. I mean, didn't JFK like regularly convene with sci-fi writers and poets and artists and talk to them about their envisioning of what the world could look like? And didn't Obama do that too? Weren't there I know there were a few
Yes.
presidents who regularly sat with writers, and especially sci-fi writers in particular, to
Yes,
talk about the future.
I think I do remember Obama giving the Congressional Medal of Freedom. I get them mixed up, to Toni Morrison and
Mhm.
to Joan Didion.
Mhm.
And I felt like he did that more than the previous president. I felt like it
Mhm.
was more like he honored the writers and the poets and the
Mhm.
artists in that way, in other ways, more
Mhm.
than had been done. And it was refreshing for people
Mhm.
who like to write and who like to read. So yes, I agree with you. I'm not sure that JFK, I've heard that. I've
Mhm.
heard stories where that happened. And I think that opened the doors for this kind of information and knowledge and sharing and community
And
to be
dreaming.
felt. And dreaming,
And
right?
dreaming. I mean, writers, artists, pianists, dancers, musicians, I mean, they help us dream of, a better a better world. Afrofuturism is, I
Right.
mean,
Right. What is that? But
it's not just
imagination and
right, it's imagination.
whimsy
Right.
and weirdness.
And
And
talking about what can be, what should be. I mean, Octavia Butler,
yes,
prophet and visionary. And dreaming's good for us. I mean, we can't just live in logic. We can't just live in trauma. We can't just live in pain. And we can't just live like in mindfulness or spirituality. Like there needs to be elements of laughter, of dreaming, of connection. I think it's so important. It's why we have like, a poet laureate,
mhm,
a poet who can speak to where the
mhm,
world is, a
mhm.
poet who can articulate from their heart about who we are as a people. And I think that matters, and I think we need to be having more conversations about that. And it's criminal that this regime is ripping away culture left and right just to be diabolical, right?
That's it.
Just to be a distraction,
Mhm,
knowing
mhm.
full well that this kind of dreaming, brings forward scientists and helps us build. I mean, we dreamt about going to space. We talked about going to space so we could have scientists get us to space.
Right.
That came from imagination.
That came from imagination and intelligence,
Mhm.
which this current regime has neither of.
Right.
I
Right.
wanna talk about what you said. Well, I wanna ask you a question about
Mhm.
dreaming. Does that include daydreaming? And in what way is there regular dreaming and daydreaming, and how is that enmeshed in sort of the ideal of imagination, like
Mm,
what could be?
daydream regularly. I I used to daydream to distract myself, and then I realized that it was important that my daydreams weren't just daydreams, and sometimes my daydreaming was me talking to spirit, and I didn't realize that that's what I was doing. So I think as I started to get deeper into my spiritual practice and recognize that I'm daydreaming, but I'm channeling something at the same time, like something's coming in,
Mhm.
and then making distinctions and making a point sometimes just to set aside time to
Mhm.
dream rather than it being something that was distracting me from something I should have been doing. And so there was a little element of shame with my daydreaming because I should be doing this rather than daydreaming. But now that I realize the power of daydreaming and imagination to help me think about how I want to go forward, that I set aside time for it. Like I have this big yellow chair in, my yoga room slash office, and I sit in it sometimes and just dream on purpose. Different than the dreaming that I do at night. But I mean, ideas have come to me then too.
Yeah.
What do you think about daydreaming?
I think it's essential. I used to do it as a child often, along with talking to myself
Mhm.
and whoever would listen.
Mhm.
And then it gets beat out of you by society. So you do feel guilt around, I'm doing my quotation fingers here, but just sitting and pondering and thinking about life. And then I return to it because it helped my writing, because it helped me figure things out. It helped me bring my ideas to fruition. So with the intellect comes the time and space necessary for daydreaming. Dreaming, on the other hand, where you sleep, where perhaps you have some insight, where maybe you are woken up by spirit,
Mhm.
and you need to jot something down is also essential.
Mhm.
That's more disruptive to me because, I like my sleep.
Mhm.
However, I am obedient in that way to what messages I'm receiving in that. And that's also helped me work out problems in my career, in my writing, in life in general. So I agree with you. I've returned to daydreaming and it's something like you said, I don't it's not necessarily for me like I'm gonna go sit in this chair and daydream. Like it comes up where I may be in the car and I take a deep breath before I go into the grocery store, and it may be a 2-minute snippet, but it's like, "Ooh, that was
Mhm.
nice."
Mhm.
Or it may be in shavasana when I'm supposed to be allowing the witness to see, but then something creeps in
Yeah.
where it's juicy because I've had this 5-minute shavasana after I've moved my fascia and
Mhm.
cells and muscles in a way that have shifted the energy and created the space for daydreaming. And so that's where it happens on the yoga mat sometimes
Mhm.
for me.
You said something interesting before around the just sitting and not being allowed to just sit. And I think about us and how productivity has been like literally beaten into us.
Mhm.
For those of us who had ancestors who were enslaved, that carried over, I think, to my family because I wasn't allowed to dream.
Mhm.
And that's no fault. I don't think it's a fault of my parents. Like I was allowed to read. Like reading was okay,
Mhm.
right? Because I think reading still looked productive. So
Right.
sometimes, it's so fun. As soon as you said that, I actually had a memory come back at me of just like sitting around when I was younger, just doing nothing, like on a weekend or something. And both of my parents saying, "What are you doing? Like,
Right.
why aren't you doing something?"
Get up, or
And
what are you doing? Or
you're not doing anything, go here's the list of chores. You're not doing it, go read a book. Like I always had to be productive and, like not sleeping late and all of those things, which I mean, listen, they're great now. I love the fact that I am this person who likes to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and all of that because it's really productive for my writing. But I think about the fact that I didn't really have any downtime.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
I had to look busy. So I think I even got good at looking busy.
I got great at it, unfortunately.
Yeah, because even when I wanted to dream, because I've always been a dreamer. I have always been the kid who looked up at the clouds in the sky and who liked to think about things. And sometimes I would even be holding a book, but I'd be daydreaming.
Mhm.
And I'm just thinking about this now because it was a way to just play or imagine, but it wasn't something that I was supposed to be doing.
Mhm.
And their parents kept them busy, and a lot of that was out of safety, right? Like, it was the learned thing that becomes this trauma response that gets ingrained generation after generation because it was meant to protect us from something happening to us. If we weren't busy, we got beat or killed, and then it just becomes this thing like, "Why aren't you doing something? Why aren't you up? Like, get up." Like, all of these things that it turns into and how much creativity we lose. And I think about so many of our Black artists and how brave and courageous they had to be artists at certain periods of time around this whole narrative of busyness and productivity.
Mhm. Yeah, I think about writers like James Baldwin and Bell Hooks and Tavia, as we mentioned earlier, who
Gloria Naylor is
uh,
one of mine.
right, where, yeah, there was some prophetic things being said by these people.
Mhm.
You can't tell me they didn't daydream. They
Mhm.
didn't or dream or daydream or talk to themselves or talk to the characters as they saw them in front of them. Or you can't tell me that that didn't happen
Mhm.
when you read their work. And when I see a piece of art, when I go into a museum or an art show and I'm connected with the piece in front of me, especially if it's visceral, it's like, which has happened. It's the same energy. Like, what were you thinking when you put this together? And
Mhm.
or not. Maybe it was a daydream. Maybe it was a download. Maybe it was a revelation. Maybe it was a conversation in a previous life.
Mhm.
Who knows? But it's so apparent. And that's why art has to be pushed forward. It has to be cultivated and nurtured, especially in the moment that we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
We have to do this. This is not a You can ask any artist. They're compelled. They're like, who would choose that life to be the
Listen,
to be
listen.
the you know what I mean? You're writing stuff and you're compelled. Who would say I want to do this just because? You're getting tapped on the shoulder repeatedly. This is why you were put on the planet. This is why you were put on this earth. This is why you were born in this specific time, in this period, to show up, to show out, to put on display that the veil is being lifted and there is darkness there and there's shadow there and there is goodness there and there is hope there. And it's an amalgamation of all of these things. And you are the creative vehicle through which people will be able to have aha moments to say, "Ah, I get that. Ah, I get it through the reading. Ah, I get it through this poetry. Ah, I get it
Mhm.
through this sound. Ah, I get it through this lyric." And that's what folks are trying to destroy. How do you defund the National Endowment of the Arts? And you have these local theaters who are scrambling for grant money, local theaters who are scrambling for grant money, trying to keep basic Shakespeare play going. I
And
mean, it's
that's
just
right.
crazy to me.
That's what we're like. I was just having this conversation with Andrea a few days ago, like just talking about so many of the working artists. Like, I'm not talking about our celebrities. I'm talking about, people who are working artists making a living, barely making a living, creating their art, and how grateful I am for them and how necessary it is. I mean, we're included in that. I mean, we're both,
Mhm. Mhm.
we're both those people. And it's not about fame. It's not about getting famous. It's about being a writer is something I have reluctantly avoided my entire life. Like I because if I wasn't going to be super successful, it didn't seem like something I could pursue. It didn't seem like a viable thing, but I was always writing. Like, it gives me a lump in my throat to think about how much I stifled her
Yes,
for decades.
because society tells us to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've
Yeah.
been writing poetry since I was 5.
Yeah.
And then something happened and society said, because I don't know if it was necessarily my parents. I can't blame my
Mhm.
parents for that. My dad has been supportive
Mhm.
in everything I've done. He supports my sister.
Mhm.
So I can't even you get around people and you have mentors and people who say things to you out of their own fear
Mhm.
and spite and quite frankly jealousy.
Mhm.
And that becomes the thing that you move towards.
Yep.
And so next thing you know, you're in corporate with 5 degrees.
Mhm. Yeah.
Doing what you're supposed to be doing, supposed to quote unquote supposed to be doing, making the money. I'm doing
Mhm.
well now. I can afford this
Mhm.
and that. Something is missing. I feel it in the center of my chest. It's missing.
Mhm.
She keeps calling. I have to listen. She keeps showing up in my dreams. She keeps showing up in my daydreams. I have to start writing again. I have to do this. And then when you do the thing and everyone that you didn't know were reading you or paying attention to you or following your artist moments comes out of the woodwork and says, "This is great. You should do this. This is great. You should." That's why I wrote a book. I won't even tell you how many people. When are you going to write a book? And I was like, I'm just I need to nurture this person, nurture
Mhm.
this being that is slowly breaking through the shell that I've created.
Yep.
I'm in the process of nurturing that. And I think artists, if they haven't gone through that like we have, and they've nurtured that the whole time, in spite of society and friends and sometimes family telling them that they're not going to be successful and you're not going to amount to shit, why are you doing this? They do it anyway.
Mhm.
They never left her. They are intact. They the higher power that's saying, "This is what you must do.
Mhm.
This is why you were put on this planet. This is what satiates you."
Yeah. And I think about artists who are called to create. And I also think about folks who wouldn't call themselves artists, but finding ways to bring art into our life to
Mhm.
make our lives beautiful is also so important. Like the home cook who is a genius, you know, the person whose home is decorated and you feel the energy and the love the moment that you walk in. House Beautiful did an article, I think it was a couple months ago. My sister wrote a really beautiful piece about it. It was like how aunties inspired interior design and thinking about just how showing up and making your life beautiful is also a form of expression that I think we need to be embracing. And it's not necessarily about even being acknowledged, but what it can do for us, for our own heart, for our own spirit, for our own community. And we do that. I mean, we as a people are artists. The way that we have been able to create this life, this culture,
Yes.
that we are artists even naturally,
Yes.
just in how we move.
I agree.
It's
It's in
just
our
so
dress too. It's how what
yes.
we wear. I mean, how many times you're like, she's wearing that dress, she's wearing those
Mhm.
shoes, she's wearing
Mhm.
how you wear your hair, what accessories you put
Mhm.
to it, and how we incorporate color
Mhm.
into things. I think that's us. We do it in a way that no one else does.
Mhm.
That's just the reality.
It's
And
true.
yeah, yeah. It's a beautiful thing to witness. I agree with you. I think we are all artists. I think we haven't fully stepped into that as a community
Mhm.
because of respectability politics, because of people telling us no, people saying, well, you need to go to school you need to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. Doctor, lawyer, engineer. You have no, and I have friends who grew up like that. Like,
Mhm.
you have no choice. Meanwhile, you're thriving in creative writing in college and you're falling in love with it, but your parents are paying for that college degree.
I
What are you going to do? And that's where some people just say, I'm choosing my light. I'm choosing the light, the shine that's inside of me.
chose to work at a bookstore. Like I have been wanting to I
When you
worked at
told me that, when
I
you
worked
told
at
me
a
that,
bookstore for almost 2 decades.
I was like, this girl
I
is
w
at a bookstore.
I was finding ways just to be next to it because I just didn't believe it was something I was allowed to do and to
Mm-hmm.
be acceptable or be respectable. And then I went the yoga route and that was a way for me to still be a storyteller through my yoga classes and meditation classes. Like I was embracing my griot, like and embracing that. And it's like I just kept the long way around to finally saying, will you just write the goddamn book? Like,
Right.
like,
Like, come
like,
on.
just come on. And it wasn't until my dad died that I think I felt released a little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
really, I mean, that's a lot to say out loud because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want
Mm-hmm.
to be an embarrassment.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt free, but I also felt him giving me a blessing to do this. Like him leaving so unexpectedly was like, You ain't in this body forever, girl. Like
Right.
you got more life behind you than in front of you. If you want to do the thing, you need to do the thing. If you want to write, you need to write and just do it and stop trying to do everything else except that.
Well, I know that you were never an embarrassment to your father.
Well, yeah.
And I know that and he knows that he couldn't be more proud of what you've accomplished. And you stepped into your own power. And sometimes these things have to happen. I feel like my
Mhm.
mother dying in my 20s pushed me into different directions at once where I felt like I need to take care of myself. So the easiest thing to do is to go into corporate.
Yep.
And I'm going to do things that I like. I'm going to slowly pick up writing again. It was sporadic.
Mhm.
However, I picked it up, poetry here and there, little pieces I would write. I also did things that were fun. And then I found yoga. And to your point, there's an element of storytelling, but also there was an epiphany of I felt like I was coming home to
Mm.
something
Yep.
that I had been missing. And next thing you know, I have a whole ass yoga career.
Yeah.
Because let me be clear, when I took yoga and I was in shavasana and I was crying, I said, what is this? What's happening? Like I didn't even have the words for what the hell was happening.
Mhm.
And then I wanted more of it. And then I started taking classes. And then I was like, maybe I'll go to a training. And this was before they had intensives for people. So
Mhm.
everybody was going to a 200-hour, whether
Yep.
you wanted to teach or not. I was like, I'm not teaching any of this. I'm just improving my practice.
Mhm.
I'm not teaching. Girl, I ended up teaching before I graduated because I'm a
Yes.
hustler and I found, because you know this. you're not even surprised. I was teaching in studios before. They were like, we need to
Of
have
course you
somebody,
were.
we need to have the studio covered with insurance because she's not even certified. I said, oh, and my mother, I know she's laughing because I never wanted to teach shit. Okay. Anything, let alone yoga. Cause she was a teacher. She was an English teacher. And I'm like, I'm not teaching anything ever. Girl, I have been faculty at different
It's
places.
hilarious.
It is so, but I think to your point, there's an aspect of storytelling there and sharing commonalities, whether that's unfortunately not trauma bonding, but sharing
Yeah.
the commonalities of trauma and also
Mhm.
sharing the commonalities of joy
Mhm.
and pleasure and
Yeah.
ecstasy and sharing those commonalities. And you can do that in certain communities. The yoga community has its, faults, as we know, is also good for that when done right and correctly,
Yes.
when the roots are honored. And I think art does the same thing. You find writers groups. We talk about our writing and we share
Mhm.
each other's writing. We talk to other writers. People are like, "Oh, there's a writers conference over here." So I feel like that's also picking up more.
Mhm.
I feel the energy of that community. And I feel like that's where we are going. And specifically with people like us who are moving through these spaces of how can we nourish ourselves? Because we cannot. Now, we knew this before the shit hit the fan, but we cannot depend on these systems
Mhm.
to nourish us or to keep us. And I know we know
Mhm.
that sometimes we have to be hit with the reality
Yeah.
hard again and again to be like, I know that, but now I really know. I really feel this in my bones. Wow.
Mhm.
What can I do to pivot back to my people? What can I do to come back home to myself and to us to practice these things? To be elevated by these artistic endeavors and to be supported and to be able to feel like, wow, this feels like a family reunion
Yeah.
I'm returning to. This feels like love. This feels like grace. This feels like I have space to be my safe, authentic self, to be brave in,
Mhm.
and to be weird in.
Mhm.
Where can I be weird? I
Yeah.
love these new things where, there's like, "Oh, we need more whimsy, more
Mhm.
whimsy." And I'm like, we need to frolic. We need to be whimsy,
Yes.
more whimsy. We need to
Yeah.
have the space to be weird. And I think we're going back to that. I think it's a choppy road. It's a choppy voyage of returning to that sort of whimsy. I think Afrofuturism is definitely,
Uh,
in that.
it is. And yes, in the rise of the black nerd, like the
Yeah.
acceptance, like, cause you and I,
The
we listen.
acceptance. Oh my, that's
We've listened, like we listened to music at an age when there was only a certain way to be black. I mean, I've even said that with one of my
right.
characters. There was only one way to be black in 1985 and I wasn't it. But it seems like as much as there's still a narrative of some black people saying like, oh, she thinks she's white and that kind of thing. But there is also, I think with younger folks embracing what blackness can be. And I think artists have really helped with that, there are multiple ways to be black and artists show us that. They show us that we can have fun, we can be weird, we can be silly. And that we don't have to have this mask all of the time and that we can peel it back and it's okay to not have to perform. Sometimes I think there was an element of blackness that was performative to some degree and in order to protect ourselves from what we had to deal with outside of our communities. Then that got stolen and appropriated. And so there's like almost a reclaiming of who we are. And we're starting to do it not in relationship to whiteness, but doing it
Right.
just for us. Like I think about on Instagram, these two kids who ride on a bike. Do you remember?
Love them. I love them. And
So
they're
you know that
singing.
happens in my neighborhood. They're from my
You
neighborhood.
told me that, and I'm so excited.
I
Making the
just
way downtown.
town,
Too
yes.
fast. I was like, oh my God, I
It's
love it.
they bring me
Whimsy.
such joy, whimsy, and it's a redefining of who we are. Like you're not going to tell them how they need to be black, and if they want to ride on a tandem bike singing 1,000 miles, and they are going to do that.
Hmm.
And I love that. I love that for young people. Like it's magical.
It's magical and it's about damn time.
Mhm.
You know, I saw on Instagram, this was a few months ago, black men frolicking, and
Oh.
I followed that entire, "Are we frolicking today? Are we frolicking?" And they just be running through the grass, running through the fields. The hills are alive with the sound of music and all of that jazz. It was great. It's great to see the joy and the happiness, which we need to have, and
Mhm.
also be informed. Like, we
Mm.
can do both. We can do all things. We are not monolithic. I think when people say black people aren't this or that, that's what we mean. And then we also double down on the meaning. I think people say it, but do you understand that we are so diverse? Like, black people and where we come from is so diverse, and that should be applauded. And some people are saying things to you. You act white, you talk white out of fear, out of not having access to the opportunities you had, out of jealousy, out of I want to know more about it, but my homies may not like it. It's a whole bunch of
Mhm.
things there.
Mhm.
And you and I have had these conversations offline, like, what does that look like and how do we show up when we are at college or when we are at certain places or when we're in meetings? I'd made the decision early on in my life that I was never going to be one of those black people who were like, I'm the only black person in the room. How can I bring somebody else
Mhm.
or not? Like, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to be like, I'm the only black person in the room. Let me pat myself
Mhm.
on the back. There's
Yep.
nothing. What are we talking about?
Yeah.
That's
Oh.
crazy to me. That is a psychosis, and that is steeped in uh, patriarchy. That is
Mhm.
steeped in respectability politics. That is steeped in all of the things that people say they don't ascribe to, but you're ascribing to it in your actions as you move. If you've been at a company for 5, 6, 7 years and you're still talking that mess and you didn't bring anybody up, you didn't see nobody came in through the company as an intern that you saw promise in, that you could mentor, that you could do anything with. This is where we are.
Mhm.
And if you don't want to do it, then move aside. If you want to, then you're not going to be in this group. There's some people that look like me that I don't want it to cook out either. Like, let's keep
Mhm.
it. Don't come. If you're not about that, if you don't think art is important, if you don't think leveraging each other is important, even if you come from a different background, which is going to happen, if you don't think encouraging people to write, to do art, to go to fashion school, whatever that may look like as it relates to your what are you even doing? I
Yeah.
think it's just a waste of time. You're wasting people's times and you're wasting folks' times who are committed to developing community, to keep pushing and moving towards equanimity and spaciousness
Mhm.
and openness at a time when we're closing off. And
Mhm.
I do feel that happening, honestly. I feel because Black people do this in spite of things that are horrible, we're going to find ways to tap into joy and in light and love and all of the things. We're going to find ways to do it in spite of all of the things that have happened to us, which is why they
Yeah.
can't stand us. Okay. Let's.
I think there's going to be another renaissance of
Mm-hmm.
art that
Mm-hmm.
is going to happen. And this happened the last time
Yep.
that person was around. Like there was a resurgence, and we
Mm-hmm.
saw that there was pushback from
Mm-hmm.
companies, and we saw the introduction of DEI and all of that, and
Mm-hmm.
we can see now how phony it was because it just went away so quickly. So it wasn't something that was woven into
Right.
our culture, because it couldn't be, because in order to do that you have to address what the real issue is, and the real issue is anti-blackness. And until we actually say those words out loud, we will not ever be talking about dismantling systems. Like, that is the only way we are going to get to the bottom of all of this, by admitting that this country was built on anti-blackness and on black bodies. And until we acknowledge that, until we heal from that, we are really just putting band-aids on, a bullet wound. But I
Mm-hmm.
digress. What I wanted to say was, around this whole idea of a renaissance coming, I feel like there's so much more art that is starting to come out. And I think a part of it is that I think you said like 700,000 Black women are unemployed. So there's that avenue. I think there's pushback against what's happening in the world. So there's more art being created. I think what Ryan Coogler has done
Yes.
is also paving a way, because he is definitely a bring people with him kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
So there's more Black books that are coming out more than ever before. So I am hopeful. Am really more hopeful than I have been in a while.
Me too. I feel like the Renaissance is coming. And the
Mhm.
Renaissance always comes when there's a lifting of the veil and people have
Mhm.
to see the muck and they
Mhm.
have to see through the muck. Roland Martin calls what we may be walking into a third reconstruction.
Mm.
So consider that for a moment. So we know the first one, and then we know the key points in history, period, but where Black people were being systematically fought against. I mean, harder than normal. The third reconstruction.
Mhm.
And what does that look like? We'll be fine because we know how to build from scratch. Hello.
Mhm.
We're artists, so we know how to create from scratch.
Mhm.
We are dreamers. We are daydreamers. This is in our DNA,
Mm.
like you said earlier. So this won't be a thing that we run away from
Yeah.
when it comes. And it's coming. The veil is being lifted.
Yeah.
All of these things. People are doubling down on their misogyny and
Mhm.
hatred because that's the last straw. That is the last bastion
Yeah, the death
that they have
throes.
to hold on.
Yes.
You know.
It's the death throes. Like,
Yeah.
I have said that. I feel like this is the death throes. And we know that when something violent is dying, it tries to take everything with it on its way down.
Mhm.
So I think this summer, I think the summer is going to be hot. But I felt a shift. Like when I saw Sinners felt like a portal opening
Mhm. I agree.
artistically.
It felt like it was more, well, obviously it was more than a movie, but it
Right.
felt like there was a visceral, when I saw it in IMAX on the big screen, I said, this is good. This is
Mhm.
good. You know, this is okay. Got Black people. Okay, the Ku Klux Klan. When it
Mhm.
got to the scene,
Mhm.
the scene,
Mhm.
I said, this is some different stuff here.
Mhm.
This is different. I didn't know about an Oscar or anything, and I really didn't care. I'm glad that they won some Oscars, and that was so magical. I mean, I remember sitting there thinking, this is so incredible, and everybody's going to see it. Like, this is so incredible, and the Asian woman's relatives are right there. Their ancestors are over there and over. This is so incredible that it was heart opening. It was heart wrenching and heart opening at the same time. And you could see why Remick was like, I want to see my family.
Mhm.
Okay. It was so, and the way that was woven into Irish history and Chinese history and Black, and the Choctaws said, I see you. We told you the sun's going
Okay,
down.
sun's going down. He said, yo, sun's going down. We got to get home. He's like, yo, okay. So I
Yo.
said what I said.
Gone. And that was, we cannot deny. We cannot deny. And the dirt roads, I remember seeing those dirt roads in my, going to visit my mother's relatives in the country. Like, it was just
Mhm.
so, it was resonant beyond words. I had to
Yeah.
sit with it.
Yeah.
We went out to dinner afterwards. I was like, I have to sit. It was quiet because there was so much stuff going on, but it was also a community building.
Mhm.
When we went in, they were like, stay for the credits. Don't
Mhm.
leave after. People that you don't know.
Yeah.
We were telling ourselves, they were telling each other, stay for the credits, stay here. It's so good. It's so good. And we're like, okay. You know how you hear that and then you go see a movie and you're like,
Yeah.
psh,
Yep.
pshaw.
Yep.
But
Yep.
this, it was, man. And I remember telling my sister, and she was like, is it a horror movie? And I said, yeah, not really, because I really wanted her to go see it. And then I ain't gonna lie, but I was hemming and hawing, and she was like, I'm gonna go see it. And she was like, that was a horror movie.
It was, but it wasn't.
She was horrified.
It was pretty violent. I
it
mean,
was
like,
horrifying. She was not lying. But I was like, but everybody talks about the scene
DC
and how magical it was and how well put together it was and how everybody moved and the nuances with the types of Black people. This is what let's move away from the scene and the Black people in it. You had the hoodoo woman, you had the woman who was, I don't want to say the word because it might be offensive, but people thought she was white.
Right.
But she was in there with them, and
Right.
Remick was like, she's in there. And I'm like, Remick, do you understand? Do you understand that she was passing? Anyway, Okay, do you get it? And all that and all the nuances of that and how Black people show up,
Mhm.
how Black people,
And
Sammy.
how they need to be supported. The scene at the bar when somebody had a drink and he had some.
Mhm.
Was it Stack who was like, "We're only taking real money here,"
It was,
or was it Smoke?
I don't know.
But remember the scene that I was
Right,
talking about?
right,
And they were like, "Do you know
Annie.
how hard?" And Annie was like, "Do you know how hard? This is not just about money. And if you want this to last, if
Mhm.
you want this to stick around, this is
Right,
what you're going to have to do." And I
right.
was like, that's what's so important. It's about just the community. Don't get caught up in the capitalism. Don't get caught up in the money. And that's what I think we also have to remember around art and when we're making it. Like, yes, you want to be successful, of course. But if you are called to make art, if you are called to support people, that is what it's about. And
Mhm.
a way will be made for you to
A
do
way will
that.
be made, and
Yeah.
it may not be today, it may not be
And
tomorrow,
it may not be the way that you think,
it may
right?
not be the way that you planned or the way that you think, that part. Because you couldn't have told me, I couldn't have written this story.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't have written it for
Mm-hmm.
myself. And I'm so much more better for it, for the experience, for the ride, even though I was like, why was I dealing with this person over here
Oh
or
my
whatever,
gosh. And
you
yeah,
know?
you think about some of the pain,
Yes,
and you're like, oh, but I mean,
so much better for
here
it.
we are sitting talking about it. And the more.
I hope that we as a people can see that we need all of the things. So I'm happy that we have engineers. I'm
Mm-hmm.
happy that we have doctors. I'm happy that we have lawyers. But when the people, the astronauts on the Artemis went up, they had to have some artistic endeavor. They had photography training. Is photography and art? It would be the words that they spoke were eloquent.
My Every single one of them.
Poetry. The way that I'm blanking out on her name. She took whoever took the picture of her, she took it of
Mm-hmm.
herself and the moon, the earth was, and she's like braids on the moon. It
Mm-hmm.
was really simple. And his words were eloquent. Victor's. And the Canadians' words were eloquent and how he lifted up the indigenous people that helped him get there. I mean, and the way that they said, we're going to use silence to ignore this clown.
Mm-hmm.
And with twiddling, literally doing this, twiddling their thumbs and laughing.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you do stuff. That's how you do it. But they
When
were artists too. That yes, they had he went to engineering school, he had to go to flight school, he had to all the math, all of the STEM stuff.
You know what that called back? Because I know you saw this. I know you saw Contact with Jodie Foster.
That is, oh my God.
Do you remember the scene when after she goes through the wormhole and she comes out and she's looking out into space and she said they should have sent a poet?
Yes.
And she says they should have sent, because she's crying and she can't even articulate what she's seeing. And she's like, they should have sent a poet. And I remember crying the first time that I saw that.
I cried through that whole movie. It was so
And
powerful.
it made me wonder, were they thinking about that movie as well when they sent up these astronauts?
Yeah.
Because they were able to articulate the beauty in a way that I think people who might not have been
Yes.
able to feel that or see that, they were able to speak to so many people. And I also thought about the episode of West Wing where they were doing a mission. I think it was a mission to Mars. And there was Rob Lowe's character who was, the
Right.
speechwriter.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
somebody from NASA, I think, wrote something and it was really, really boring. And the president was really pissed.
I'm trying to remember
And
that episode, but
and then Rob Lowe takes a stab at it, just standing there. And he's like, well, what if it's something like this? And he comes up with this magic just pours out of his mouth. And then President Bartlett looks at him. He was like, what he said. And it's just that marriage, that art matters, to be able to catalyze people to change, to revolution, to want more. We need people to be able to touch people to do that. And artists can do that. And to be able to tap into the artists inside all of those astronauts was, I think, the perfect blend of what needs to happen in order for us to get to the next place in the world, because we are in a new place and we are going to have to rebuild, and art needs to be a major part of how we do that.
It was incredible.
Mm.
I might have to go watch Contact again.
I actually think I'm going to tonight too as I'm
I
packing.
I was thinking of Interstellar because that was probably one of my favorite.
Mhm.
It did pull at the heartstrings, and I can't think of the other science fiction movie I loved, but yeah, Contact, hands down. Because at the end, they were like, "Oh, you didn't go anywhere. The ball just dropped." I said, "She went out of this world, literally." Like she was
And Angela Bassett was like, "Then why did the tape play for the."
right. And she was trying to figure it out. Like they were
Mhm.
all in, yeah, but we saw but she was like, but it
Mhm.
was so I'm gonna watch it again.
Ugh.
I mean, when she saw her father on the
Out on the
that beach,
beach.
that it was just incredible. And what kind of creative mind said, "We're gonna write a science fiction story where she goes traveling, but it's a spiritual one,
Mhm.
and we're gonna make it believable." That's why you need daydreamers. That's why you need artists. That's why you need creatives to be able to put those ideas on paper or celluloid or wherever you gotta put it,
Mm.
in clothes, in jewelry, in perfume, in food. Where are you gonna put it? In writing?
Mm.
Where else can you put that, you know? It's just been a joy watching the whole Artemis thing. I'm a nerd in that way.
Mhm.
It's been incredible, and everyone's talking about his speech and how he piloted the plane, the ship, and how incredible they had was to work with them, how they were saying the trip was too short because they got so connected. They were so connected, so in community. It was
Watching them
cohesion,
hug
cohesion.
when they landed, watching that hug, like, it brings tears to my eyes, the way that they were like, they were what we can be.
They were what we can be. And it was such a light. It was such a light. And I know they've planned this for years,
Mhm.
but who knew that they would really be welcomed beyond compare. Like, who knew that we needed this? I read somewhere where somebody was like, "I want season 2 of Artemis.
Yeah, I need
I
season
want
2.
season 2."
Yeah.
We need this was too fast.
Yeah.
We binge watched.
Yeah.
Please, can we have a season 2?
Yeah. I think I'm gonna go have to watch Contact. I'm gonna have to go rewatch that episode of West Wing. Oh, the Amy Adams movie where they make
Arrival.
Arrival. Now Arrival, remember Arrival took me out. Like,
Arrival had me done
I
because
was
she was
I
would
was
you
not
still
okay.
I was not okay. Knowing that your we're
Ooh.
giving spoiler alert. Knowing that your
Uh,
your daughter ain't gonna
uh,
make it. Would you make these changes? Would you do whatever? I was done.
and that she could live it all at the same time, like living it all at the same time, and time's not real and all of it's together. And I remember watching that, it broke my brain because I was like, this is it. Like, they have captured what is really happening with time and the universe
And they
and
tried to tell
timelines.
y'all, and then the people came and tried to help you and tell you.
And that is a movie you need. If you have not seen
Yeah, you have to
Arrival,
watch it.
go see Arrival. It is so moving. I mean, I was inconsolable, not just over the storyline, but over how they captured, like, experiences that I've even had, like with meditation.
Yes.
I wasn't sure if I was gonna mention this, but I am gonna mention it because why not? Like, there are times when I'm watching particular shows from, like, the '80s where I feel it's not nostalgia that I'm feeling.
Mhm.
I feel the timeline open.
Mhm.
And it's not with every show. Like, I've written about the experience, like, when my dad died and he came to let me know, and that I got this pull to
Yeah.
watch Taxi.
Mhm.
I was transported to a time. It wasn't a memory. And I called it nostalgia because I couldn't articulate it. But
That's right.
after seeing Arrival, I was like, no, it wasn't a memory. And it happens, and this is going to sound weird, it happens with Law and Order. There's something about the closing credits when I watch Law and Order where I am literally standing, like, in the '90s and present at the same time. And I truly understand that time isn't what we think it is. It's not this linear thing. And
Mhm.
for me, my way to get there is through television and movies and books because that's my medium. So I can transport. I'm sure you can do it without a television
Mhm.
show. But I think that's why that movie was so powerful for me because I've had that exact experience of recognizing that time is not linear. And Interstellar did that too.
Interstellar had me Interstellar, I mean, they called the thing the Tesseract.
Mm-hmm.
And my first I mean, Arrival definitely. I mean, my chest hurt after I watched that. Like you
Mm-hmm.
said, your brain broke. I said, "What? Something is my chest was hurt." I said, "I need to take a break."
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it was because of the sadness of it. It was because but when that Asian guy knew exactly
Yeah.
when he knew, "I know who you are. I know you come because my wife, because what I had to take a break. Interstellar, because he had to leave his children behind and all of that, and he was talking to his daughter and things like that, and they called it the Tesseract, and the first thing when I saw that movie, I said, "That's the Akashic Records."
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what Tesseract means, but that's Akashic Records. He was like "Oh, here's my daughter at 15. Here's my daughter at" I was and time was just whatever it was. Time was
When
whatever it was.
he pushed the watch.
And the watch and she girl, that was
Yeah.
I was like, "Do we have to travel to space?" Like, he had to give up a lot to be able to, quote, unquote, "prove" that time is not linear and you can
Mm-hmm.
move objects and all of that. And it was the most beautiful and heart-wrenching thing I'd ever seen. Because when he got back, his daughter was what, 90? What was she
Yeah.
it was amazing, and you have to have good actors in those types of renderings, you know? You
Yeah.
have to have because I felt him when he cried, when he saw his daughter, and it was rough.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't watch Interstellar 'cause my heart broke. Like,
Yeah.
I was just sobbing. I said, "There are people that will have to do this for mankind, for
I
humankind."
feel like we're closer to that than I want to admit.
Yeah, I think so. I think the travel around the moon with Artemis, I'm glad there were women in the what do they call it, control room.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad it was named after a goddess. All of
Mm-hmm.
that. I'm glad they had a woman on the spaceship.
Mm-hmm.
I think we are coming into the time, and everybody I felt like was in their divine masculine and divine feminine.
Yeah.
And that's what people are resonating with all of that. If you believe in that type of thing, it was everything.
Mm-hmm.
There was no toxicity. There was no,
Mm-hmm.
okay, she's a woman, she can't. There was none of that. There was no, oh, he's this. Everybody was like cohesion. There's a mission. There's cohesion here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think science fiction, which is why I love it so much, aspires to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where can we get to this point of cohesion? That's the artist's job, to elevate and to have you emote in some kind of way, even if you don't come back to the movie years after,
Yeah.
which was the case for me in Contact. But to have you, not because it wasn't good, but because this is too much. Like, my spirit there's something going on with my spirit, and I've seen this. And that's why I love anything science fiction. I'm
Mm-hmm.
a Trekkie, I love Star Wars. I think that's a good genre for that. I also
Mm-hmm.
think horror is a good genre. Some things I can't watch because it's
Yeah.
too much for me. But I think horror explores shadow a lot, and we need to explore shadow, and because we're dealing with it in myriad ways now,
Yeah.
and in very heavy ways now.
Yep.
And so how do we do that? So Sinners, yes, was a horror movie, but it was artistically done in a way that there were spaces in between, even with the horror, even like I understood Remick, didn't
Mm-hmm.
mean he wasn't going to keep doing what he was doing. And I also understood why you have to have the scene in it, the scene.
Yep.
And why, even in spite of all of that carnage, he still had to be a blues payer. Can we
Yep.
talk about it? He still had to be like, I got to follow, this is in me.
This is his dream.
People
Like,
died, but I
that
got
was, but that was the art, right? Like,
right,
it had to live
right.
because it wasn't just something fun to do. It was a necessary part of contributing to the world, and it was a calling.
It was his calling. What are you
and
going to do when you have a calling?
you can't ignore it. I mean, you can't ignore the calling. For some people, the calling's forever. For some people, the calling's for a little while.
Right.
But when you get called to do something and you are able to do it, you need to do it. And sometimes it comes at great cost, but it's something that I think we still need to do. And I think we need to do more of that with daydreaming. We need to do more of that with imagination, even if it costs the rest of the world right now. I think Black people need to be dreaming, and Black people need to be embracing imagination, because I think it is necessary for us to thrive, to heal, and to collectively figure out how we're moving forward.
I think to that point, it may or may not collapse the world. I think there is going to be a collapse, and I don't think, how can I say this? Like, I don't think we don't need to be concerned with that.
No, that's
Like,
what I mean. Yeah,
right,
that's what I'm saying. Even if it costs something. I mean,
right. I feel
we're
like,
so used to being used for productivity
right,
that we
right,
think we have to show up. I mean, you and I have had this conversation offline all the time, how I think I
right,
need to be out in the streets, and I
right.
don't.
And I'm
Um,
not, right.
it's like metta for the self,
Hmm.
right? We need to love on ourselves the same way that we have been loving on and taking care of the world forever. The fact that we have not been able to collectively do this has cost something to the world. So
Hmm.
the fact that I think it is time for us to turn inward and to take care of ourselves. You're right. It's probably not a detriment to the world. It's actually probably really healing for the world, because if we aren't well collectively, nobody is.
Hmm. Agreed. And sometimes healing is painful.
Sure. That's
People,
right.
I'm going to heal. You think you're walking through daisies or whatever. And it hurts. It's painful. It's arduous. There's things you have to give up. There's things you didn't consider prior to your healing journey, quote
Mhm.
unquote. There's so much to be said for what that healing looks like. And some people are finding out because they haven't had to deal with any pain,
Yep.
really, at the end of the day, and
Mhm.
nothing like us.
Mhm.
So they are like tapping out after 3 months.
Yeah, it's like when people
It's just
talk
like, are you
about
crazy?
their ancestors, and they talk about, or their spirit guides, and like they talk about it in all this flowery language, and I was like, who are your guides and ancestors? My ancestors and guides are like no joke with me. Like sometimes they're really like yoking me up by the collar. It is
Hmm.
not all warm and fuzzy. It is sometimes
Mm-mm.
very direct.
Very direct. Like,
And
why are you doing this? Why are you
girl,
getting
you
ready to do
paying
this?
attention? Like we're
Right.
talking to you. Like, what are you
Right.
doing? I'm like,
Right.
this is not warm and fuzzy and soft. It is really kind of harsh. And I'm listening, but
But that hurt me. That hurt my feelings. And they're like,
yeah,
mm-hmm. Because
uh-huh.
I'm sometimes that hurt my feelings. You'll be all right.
You'll
You
be all
got the
right.
message. Like,
Yeah.
damn, damn.
Yeah.
However, it is in the not so subtleness and in some of the abruptness that got me back to writing and back
Yep.
to being with nature and back to being creative in other ways. It pushed me. And so I'm going to listen forever, regardless of who said I'm not going back. Like, people they do push pull and then I'm opening up too much. I don't want to, I'm too nervous about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a story. I can't believe I'm getting ready to share this, but it just came to me. But since you shared some, I'm going to share it. Where my mother was like telling me a story because when I was growing up, I wasn't the best listener. And so she had to she was telling me stories to become a better listener. She's trying to make her oldest child be a better listener. She did her a great job. So she told me this story about how she could see stuff before it was happening. And she didn't say it in the way that I'm saying it now. Like we have
Mm-hmm.
different language she used. And she said she learned how to turn it off, Oneika. She turned it
Wow.
off. And she said, I turned it off because it scared me. Meaning you saw some stuff she saw some stuff and she told me. She didn't tell it. She would sit me down and tell me, I will say things like that.
Wow.
And so it scared me because it was like, I know she was warning me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why is she telling me this?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, that's really, oh, mom, but you could be open. It's like a fortune teller. Like I'm a
Mm-hmm.
child. So you think fortune telling. She was looking at me like, no, like it was scary.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, it got real. Not like, are you going to wear blue today or green today? Like somebody's life. You understand? So
Mm-hmm.
she said she learned how to turn it off. And I said, okay. So I'm tipping into the gift.
Uh-huh.
And part of me turning that off was I'm not going to write. I'm just going to go into
Yep.
corporate. Part of me turning that off because she's protecting her daughter, but at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
that's fear based because of
Yep.
whatever. I'm tipping into these things. and I'm not really expressing myself. So through the art is where the magic happens
Yes.
and where you can do the quote unquote fortune telling. I had to unlearn that. Like it was subconscious that I was like, okay, well, I'll suppress it, which is, I don't know. I feel like that was the message, but that wasn't her inner self talking to me.
Yeah.
Right. And so I know that, like, I learned that maybe she passed, but in my 30s, I was like, this isn't the way. Like, I had to unlearn that and I had to open myself up. And is it scary? Have I seen things? Have people removed themselves from my lives? We've had these conversations so that I can use whatever my creativity is to allow that art to flow through me. Yes. Has there been divinity everywhere in it, mixed in it? Yes, I cannot deny it. I cannot deny it. Because not that it's been easy, but it's been easy. Maybe not simple, but it's been easy,
Yep.
to be able to step into these gifts and have my spirit guides help me because I was open. When I wasn't, I ain't hear nothing from nobody. Right. And so, yeah, my mother did that from love and how she was raised and the gifts that she had that she's bestowing on her oldest child, because you don't want to be looked at like some crazy person or freak. Right.
Yep.
And I know why she did it. And so these things are more acceptable now. But who do you talk to about that? Who do you talk to about those things? Like, you and I talk, like we have, we have community around that, but you can't, who do you talk to?
It's only recently too.
Right.
Recently, I mean, in the past several years that I've even talked about it out loud, because I just felt like, well, I wasn't supposed to, or I would be embarrassing my family or something. Like, respectability really
does a number.
It really does a number on your ability to talk about certain things, because I mean, I've had experiences since I was a kid, and I just wouldn't talk about them because I thought I wasn't supposed to be talking about them, or that there was something wrong with me. And so I just didn't talk about it. But you're right. Now that, I mean, gosh, you're making so many things clear. My writing about them is the channeling. And it also shows up when I'm teaching, or, sometimes when I'm doing, like, I've been doing, I told you, 1,000,000 podcast interviews. Like, there's times that I'm talking that I don't even know. I don't know what I said.
I know. And you have been doing, literally, it's 1,000,000, isn't it?
I mean,
I'm so happy for you.
And I don't know what I said, and not because I wasn't present, but because I allow myself to be open sometimes and ask, right? I ask before I go into an interview, like, can you just make sure, like, you're covering me and I'm showing up and I'm being present, and if there's things you want me to say, like, you can say them, and I'll be a vessel for it. These are not things I would have talked about before. I would have felt like embarrassed, or then the other part of respectability, unqualified. Like, that's the other part.
Right.
Like,
definitely qualified, definitely tapping in, definitely,
and now not worrying about any of it. Like, this is just, and that's also the practice, right? Like, just like, this is what it is. And we're all like this, but are we all willing to start to open up and return to who we are, not just individually, but collectively and with consciousness, like collectively here in this timeline, but then also back to consciousness, because that's where we're going.
Hey, some people are going kicking and screaming.
Right.
And some of us, I mean, there's joy, and then there's also some hardships along the way. However, it's my journey and I want to partake in it. I want to do this. I've committed to moving in this direction.
Yeah.
And so, as the saying goes, you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
That's right.
Not doing it, don't want to do it, want to continue to walk towards, step into, swim, flow with my path going forward.
I'm so glad that we had this conversation.
Me too. These are always good conversations.
I know, they are. They are.
We always go there and talk about whatever's on our mind, and then sometimes people pop in and say, did you say that? And you're like, wait, start looking around like, oh yeah, who? Oh, was that me? Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
We'd like to know how you're creating art, what you think about art. So let us know. And if you think this touched you, and you would like to share it with somebody else, go ahead and share this episode. And we will see you next time.
See you next time.
Thanks for listening to You Good. Follow us on Substack at yougoodcollective.substack.com. Find us on YouTube at You Good Podcast for Us. Like, share, subscribe to keep the conversation going. Got something to say? Email us at yougoodpodmail@gmail.com. Until next time, be good.